saw Catherine in July, but we haven't seen her in this trip. But Max is out walking the dog every, 10 times a day.
Yeah. They're there. Yeah.
They're lovely.
They are.
Well, why don't we get started? We have, looks like we have about 22 folks on right now, which is great. And you all seem to be really good Zoomers. Like you know exactly what you're doing.
Lots of practice.
Yeah, you got to practice for tonight, Randy.
Ay.
You want to mute us all?
Yeah, I think I will. I will do that. I think I can do that, right?
Yeah.
Or we can do it if you can't.
Yeah, okay. All right, we're up to 24. That's good. Oh, yeah, mute all. I can do that. And I will do that as soon as we start our first story. Hi, Ann.
But you can't mute. No.
Don't mute the person who's talking.
Right. Oh, that's a good point.
Hey, Sarah.
We can all individually mute if we have to.
Right, because we're grown-ups. We can do that. All right. Well, just a few opening things to say. This is our fourth Randolph Story Slam, so welcome everyone. It certainly is really different to be doing it on Zoom, but then, thank God for Zoom, otherwise we wouldn't be doing it at all. And Randolph has several other Zoom meetings coming up. One is tonight, the RMC meeting, and if you haven't registered for that yet, you can look in the weekly. And it tells you how to register, and then you'll be sent the Zoom invite for tonight. Is that right, Randy?
Sarah, so at this point, people should just email me, and my email address is in the weekly.
Perfect.
Don't register. There's not time for that, but I can send the link.
Great. Good. Thank you. And then next Friday night, the Randolph Foundation will have its annual meeting by Zoom. So we're going to have some really good Zoom experiences. And then we'll probably be really sick of Zoom and really be hoping for a vaccine so we can be together next.
What about the picnic and charades? Are those going to be on Zoom?
Yeah. No.
Too hard to do.
Yeah.
I struggled, and the board struggled with what we could do this summer, and charades and picnicking just didn't meet the criteria.
Yeah.
Doing a charade requires getting together to practice. So
Yeah,
Right,
part
exactly.
of the rationale there.
Well, usually every year at the Story Slam, we team up with the Finneys and the Minifies and the Kellys to take care of everything that we need, like the AV equipment and the food, Kempe and Bill's food, and all the wine and beer that we go down and buy, but we're not going to be doing any of that. So today we're just teaming up with Zoom, and I guess that's a good thing. The other thing that we typically do is the put on joint by the foundation and the church, and we do pass around a basket for the Benevolences Fund of the Randolph Church. And I think, as you know, that Benevolences Fund supports 6 organizations in the area that are doing very good work and helping families and individuals. And Ted May did something very cool this year. He has carried out video interviews with each of the executive directors of those organizations. And week by week, we're putting them into the weekly. And you can also find them on the Randolph Church website. And if you go to the Benevolences page, you'll find these videos. And they're really interesting and tell you about what these organizations are doing if you don't already know. And of course, directs you in how to send in a contribution if you're so inclined. So I wanted to make sure everyone knew that. And so the other thing that is kind of different this year is that normally Bill and I go around and, wrench people's arms and, give them a few beers to try to talk them into telling a story, but we couldn't do that because of COVID, right, Bill? So we put out lots of notices. We got 5 or 6 signups. And so the way we thought we would do it this year is we'll do this 5 or 6 that we have, and then we'll just invite anyone who might want to say anything about Randolph, tell a little story or, you know, or anything that you'd like, as long as it's not longer than 5 minutes, that you would be welcome to do that. So I thought I'd say that now, and you can think about it. No, you're not pressured, or no one will be forced to do anything. But if you'd like to say something when we're done with the regular lineup, that would be great. Bill, is there anything else we should say now? Wait, you're on mute. Isn't he cute? Look at all his hair.
It's a nice feature for Bill to have a mute button.
We can't hear you. Bill,
I don't see him.
Here
there you
I see Franklin.
Ray, do you see my glasses right there?
Anything else we should say right now?
We don't see Bill.
I think that's about the only thing I'm thinking of. Why do I have Guy Stever on my screen twice then?
One is still 2 for the price of 1 today.
Oh, I like it. I like it.
Woo,
I had trouble signing in.
I muted.
Okay, I see you twice with 2 different backgrounds. The only thing I'm thinking about the mute thing is if there's laughter, etc., or crying or gnashing of teeth, it might be good to hear that. If people are not going to be making noise, it might be better to have us unmuted. I don't know.
That's right. Yeah.
Think about what it would be like.
All right, well, let's take a vote on that. I think that's a great point. Sorry to a bunch of people who can't say anything. It's really kind of a bummer, isn't it?
I would just like to say that I'm still in New York and I have heavy traffic outside, so.
Okay, well, maybe you should mute. But what do you all think about not muting so we can laugh and giggle and stuff?
That's a good idea.
Or like this if you don't like it. I like it.
Thumbs up for not mute. But no heckling.
I like it.
On.
Oh, no.
heckling.
Heckling is good.
How about we try it?
Heckle after.
What if we try it, and if it doesn't work, we can always go
Yeah,
back.
that's a good idea.
Becky, are you in Randolph?
Yeah, hi.
Yay.
Here with my friend Kathy Walmack,
Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Kathy.
Hello.
Welcome.
who just got in last night.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Marvelous.
Oh,
And then one other thing I wanted to, if you're not familiar with Zoom, you can place the way you view it on speaker view or on gallery view. And that's a choice that you can make. I think it's in your upper right-hand corner. And so gallery view shows everybody who's,
It's everybody.
isn't that fun? And then there's pages, so you can go from one page to the next to see everybody. Or if you prefer to see speaker view, then you just see the person who's talking. So you
Randolph Squares.
it is like that. Oh man, this is a riot. Hi, Mark. All right, so we're up to 32 participants.
Randolph Storython.
Eat.
Good.
Okay, so we're gonna leave ourselves unmuted at peril, but we're gonna try it out so we can laugh and stuff. And I'm gonna go right to our first one. It is Doug Mayer coming to us from
Whoa.
England. And he pre-recorded it for us. Isn't that awesome? He got all excited and recorded it for us. So I'm going to share my screen. Yeah, do you all see that?
We see Doug.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ready?
Go.
There we go.
I always consider Randolph home. Well, good afternoon from Chamonix, France, probably the only place in the world that could draw me away from Randolph. I want to awkwardly take the phone before I get started and show you in the distance, and with Mont Blanc in the distance, and perhaps of interest to Randolph because in there in the middle of that image was the Aiguille du Répond, which was climbed with another woman together, 2 women together, one of whom was Miriam Underhill in 1929, leaving all the men climbers to bitterly complain that the climb was no longer worth doing. An anecdote there tied to Randolph. I think I came to first begin to understand Randolph through buying a home built by John Boothman, the first president of the RMC, and always was a very nice connection for me being involved with the RMC and really arriving in Randolph because of the RMC many years ago. The first reason for that is it gave me a small town sense of people looking out for each other. I had been looking for a long time for a piece of land or a house or something that I could afford. And Ann Kennison called me from the town hall one day and said, I just got off the phone with the family that owns the Moore House. They want to sell it. You should call them immediately. And I did. And told them I was very serious and very interested if I could afford it. And that gave them a great laugh because they said, what is it with this town of Randolph? 5 minutes ago, we just decided we were going to sell the house. But it was thanks to Ann and people on the lookout for me that I was able to find a place in Randolph. And I know Tim and Mather understand that since that tradition continues. Thanks to Howie Weems and them landing in my past house in Randolph. Second, I think Randolph has a certain sense of communal property that extends beyond that of most towns. And what I mean by that is when I was renovating my Boothman home, people would just drop by because it was a Boothman home and an important part of Randolph's history. I think they felt a certain sense of ownership also, which at first I wasn't quite sure I knew what to make of. And later I really enjoyed. I think I appointed Bill Bradley as my general contractor. Dwight helped me find water. I don't know if the dowsing helped or not, but I did get a good well. And people would just sort of drop by, which was something that was a little unusual. And I think that extends now to property in town, and in particular the RMC trails. Someone once told me that it was an honor to have an RMC trail on their land. And that sense that even though it's private property, it's something special and shared, I really like. It gives the town a nice collective sense of ownership of different things that really matter. I think third is, and perhaps balancing that and maybe offsetting it, is a mutual respect for privacy. And when my house was finally done, I'd been working on it with Ray Cotnoir and Dave Fontaine for quite a while, and I finally moved in. That first winter, we had the AVSAR, Androscoggin Valley Search and Rescue, Christmas party there. And we were firing off my potato gun like mad. And anyone who remembers that potato gun, which I still have, by the way, stored in Randolph, will know that it made quite a noise and shot a potato from that house over Randolph Hill Road. Apologies to the Alexanders if you found potatoes over the years on your property. During that AVSAR party, Alan Lowe got a call from my neighbors. I've forgotten who they were, but it was the predecessor to Gail Scott. And there was a babysitter there who said there's explosions and shots coming from next door, something like that. Well, Alan saw all the there. Probably he knew it was the AVSAR Christmas party or winter party. And he said, oh, it's just Doug firing off his potato gun. So he knew there was no harm there, and didn't even bother to drop by to say anything. So that was, I think, the third quality of from that process of renovating that Boothman home that was, so very nice. There are plenty of other examples. When we had our moving party, when the house actually moved from the old foundation to the new foundation, I think it was probably Sally Glines or Becky brought over a bottle of champagne, and a bunch of neighbors gathered, and we watched the house move. That was That was a lot of fun. So those are, some memories tied to the Boothman history and the Boothman homes in town that I think for me illustrated for me what kind of community I was going to be moving into, and it was really, really cool and very special. So I still have that potato gun, as I said, and as many of you know, I'm friends, Jason and Dave Salisbury, Jason Hunter, and others are going to be building a small house for me at 35 Boothman Lane, thanks to Sandy Harris and Beth Cruzy in part for the land, get that going. I always consider Randolph home, no matter how far away I am. And I just wanted to say the potato gun's there, but you don't have to worry because it's not armed. And maybe someday when that house gets done, you'll hear some shots coming from 35 Boothman Lane. And Alan, if you're watching this, you can know it's just a potato gun again. I hope everyone's doing well, and I enjoyed sharing these memories. Yeah, bye-bye.
All right, and we are recording this, so Doug will be able to hear our reactions, and anyone can watch this later on. All right, we're going to move right on to Mary.
Hi, good afternoon. Am I on now?
Yes.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
All right. Good afternoon from Northern California. I thought I was going to be far afield, but can't compare to Doug. My name is Mary Adams. I first went to Randolph in 1975 with my future husband, Andrew Wiley. So compared to many of you, I'm a newcomer to the community. Andy's grandmother, Dorothy Richards Keach, who was born in 1877, started going to Randolph as a child with her family. Then in 1929, she bought the house, and it was the summer of 1929, she bought the house next to the Mount Crescent house, the Mount Crescent Hotel. And that home is still owned by heirs of the Boothman family. Neighbors on the other side are children of Martha and Howard Wink. Last winter, I started writing some of our family stories, and I'd like to share one with you. When our daughter Sarah was 4 years old, we spent 2 weeks at the Wiley Summer Cottage in northern New Hampshire. After an early supper, we would walk down Randolph Hill Road. One evening, we were approached by an elderly couple who stopped and introduced themselves as Beth and Ed. Sarah immediately said, "Well, Beth and Ed, you shouldn't be walking in the middle of the road. It's dangerous. You could be hit by a car." Quickly, they stepped over to the side. Beth said they had known about cars, and Ed thanked her for reminding them. Later that evening, I mentioned to my father-in-law that we had met his neighbors, Beth and Ed. He thought for a minute and then said, "Oh, that was Beth and Ed Purcell." He then added that Edward Purcell had been awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics in the early 1950s. The following weekend, we went to the annual charade, a summer event that's taken place in Randolph for decades. There were 3 teams: the Hill, the Midlands, the Valley. Each team chose a word, and then in several elaborate scenes acted out the word. These charades had dialogue, props, sometimes there was singing and music. The examples of past words, these are not usual words. Examples are euthanasia, onomatopoeia, pantomime, syzygy. We sat in the lovely natural amphitheater waiting for the show to begin. Sarah was on my left, sitting on her knees, looking uphill. She started waving and she said, "Oh, I see Beth and Ed." I glanced up the hill. Dr. and Mrs. Purcell were leaning forward, waving down to Sarah. I turned to Andy, sitting on the other side, and I said, "She's 4 years old. Not only did she scold a Nobel laureate, she calls him Ed." So, thank you. And thank you to Beth and Ed for providing such entertainment for our family, and now for you.
Mary, and just to set the record straight, we don't consider you a newcomer.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was great.
That was lovely.
It was.
Thank you.
All right, we are moving on to Betsy Rising Segura.
Yes. Hi, I'm not in Randolph. I'm in Tlayacapan, state of Morelos, country of Mexico. I thought I was pretty far away. France is a little bit farther. We're only about 5,000 kilometers from you guys, okay? I have here in my little notes just a couple of brief, not so spectacular, and not exactly a story. But what I'm going to talk about revolves around what I've learned in Randolph over the years and carry around with me a bit to this day. A few things might be qualified as a little sinful, just a little, okay? First, I learned the art of persuasion from my father on a hike to Glen Boulder, the first hike I remember. I had just turned 4, so of course, I remember being 3. The big La Fuma pack with large cans of Hawaiian punch. I got grumpy and he kept telling me, it's right around the bend, always around the next corner. The art of persuasion. I learned to be prepared, as you may know from our family and late nights on the mountain. You never know when you'll need that flashlight for coming out of the woods after dark or how many times. I think we became a little famous for that. We buy stock in batteries. I learned how to drive on the Pinkham B Road. Many 3-point turns, either in a huge Chevy station wagon or a little red beat up convertible VW Bug. I'm still driving way too many kilometers, just not so many 3-point turns. Still had a VW Bug down here in Mexico for many years. Okay, here comes one of the simple ones. I learned how to steal. At times I was just picking up a rock here, a piece of mica there, but down here somehow I have a whole trunk full of rocks from years of hikes. And I have no idea how I got all that weight down here, but it's a huge trunk that can't be moved. I think if John Scarinda is watching, the statute of limitations is long gone by on that one. I learned how to share. I was feeling a little lonely one night when I was working up at Crag, and even though I was in the midst of about 15 Boy Scouts and their brave leader, I went down to sit on a rock. I watched the clouds roll through the valley, and suddenly I was surrounded, and we all had cups of Swiss Miss to feel better. That's sharing, right? Okay, I found out pretty quickly it was my own Swiss Miss, my own chocolate, but we all did feel better, especially since that night Crag was struck by an amazing bolt of lightning. I can still remember the smell of the ozone. That was sharing, okay? I learned the art of the bribe. My last pack coming down from Crag in '77 was close to 96 pounds. Well, maybe it was 56 pounds, but again, I remember it as 96 pounds. My knees were shaking the whole way down. I had a gas bomb, my stuff, my horn, more stuff, and a cat. The bribe, my mother said she'd buy me a much wanted baseball bat if I got my knees checked out. So I still have that bat, okay. Almost last, but not least, the art of deception. That's what I learned. I have a lilac plant down here in Mexico with me. It hasn't bloomed yet, but boy, do I miss that smell. The lilacs on the road, the lilacs up at Dicolo, the lilacs my mother has now, I really miss them. Sorry to admit that my plant was smuggled in, illegal, butterfly effect with bugs, I don't know, it's here. It came in a sandwich, in between 2 pieces of bread down to Mexico. I promise I'll never do it again, but that was the art of deception, okay? Next up is something I learned up there, but it's a story that stayed with me. Not something I learned, but a story that stayed with me, carried around in my music, and specifically in playing Strauss to Eulenspiegel. One night up at Crag, it had to be August, Tad, Dwight, Alan, who knows who else came up, and we all climbed above tree line to catch the falling stars, the meteor shower. I think Tad had a little kitten in his t-shirt It went up and it went back down. I don't know that for sure, but I think I remember that. The reason this is so memorable for me is that I just had to bring along my radio. The Live from Tanglewood broadcast that night was to include Till Eulenspiegel, Great Horn Park, fun piece to play. I've played it a whole bunch of times since then, but always with that night in mind, which is kind of special, okay? Here's the last thing. I learned how to space out in a really good way. If many of you did that just now, I totally understand. We can imagine we're doing the Story Slam in the church, you know, with those beautiful windows. And with all due respect for the world, all due respect in the world for going to church in Randolph, I would always catch myself absorbed in looking out the windows, spacing out. I'd be listening, but I'd be spacing out with the changing colors of the green leaves in the summer. Okay, I'll close with no more rocks, no more lilacs, no more Swiss Miss, most likely no more Till Eulenspiegel. I'm soon to retire. Hopefully less and less driving, almost surely more hours of watching the wind in the leaves, and guaranteed, I sure hope, that whatever's coming my way is just around the bend. I really miss you guys up in Randolph. I send you all big hugs and saludos from Morelos, Mexico. Yeah.
Bravo.
That was awesome, Betsy. Thank you.
Hi, far away. It's wonderful to see everybody. It's just so great. Yeah, to see where you are. Yeah.
Now, both Betsy and Barbara Rising were working hard to get Joan Rising to bring a story to us today. We almost had her, didn't we, Betsy? But
almost, yeah.
But
it's okay. Another day. Another day.
Do you want to read that poem?
If you want, if you like.
So in spot, Betsy has a poem.
Okay, this is a book called The White Hills and Poetry. A friend gave it to me a while back. It was published in 1912, so you can imagine what kind of poetry is. But it's called The White Hills and Poetry, and the poem itself is called The Hills Are Home. Okay? It starts, forget New Hampshire? By her cliffs, her meads, her brooks afoam, with love and pride where we bide the hills, and the hills are home. On Mississippi or by Nile, Ohio, Volga, Rhine, we see our cloud-born Merrimack adown its valley shine. The Contoocook singing water Monadnock's drifts had fed, with lilt and rhyme and fall and chime flashed o'er its pebbly bed. And by Como's wave, yet fairer still, our Winnipesaukee spread. Alp, nor Sierra, nor the chains of India or Peru can dwarf for us the white-robed heights of our wonderful childhood knew. The awful notch, the great stone face, the lake where echoes fly, and the sovereign dome of Washington throned in the eastern sky. For from Colorado's snowy range to the crest of the Pyrenees, New Hampshire's mountain grandas lift their peaks in airy seas, and the winds of half the world are theirs across the main and the leaves. Yet far beyond her hills and streams, New Hampshire dear we hold, 1,000 tender memories, our glowing hearts enfold. For in dreams we see the early home by the elms or the maples tall, the orchard trees where robins built and the wells by the garden wall, the lilac, the apple blossoms make paradise of May, and up from clover meadows floats the breath of new mown hay. Okay. Forget New Hampshire, let Kearsarge forget to greet the sun. Connecticut forsake the sea, the shoals their breakers shun. But fervently, while life shall last through wide our ways decline, back to the mountain land our hearts will turn as to a shrine. Forget New Hampshire, by her cliffs, her meads, her brooks afoam, by her hallowed memories our lodestarred while we roam. Whatever skies above us rise, the hills are home. Okay, just thought it was kind of special on a day when I kept so far away and I'd rather be where you guys are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And tell Joan we send our love to her. All right, we're going to move on to Bill Minifie.
Okay, we go from the sublime to the ridiculous. But here we go.
We can't hear you, Bill.
It's kind of, yeah.
Yeah, it's really shaky.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
You need to be louder.
Not really.
Louder. Can you turn up the volume?
How about now?
No.
Yes, I think you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still having problems?
That's better.
I know.
Hang on a second. We're going to switch computers here. Hang on.
Computers.
Needs to project to Mexico.
Sometimes you can adjust your input volume, possibly both on the computer and in the settings for Zoom.
Yeah.
Right.
Settings for Zoom.
Oh, maybe you tell me how to get settings.
Bill, you could probably just step outdoors and project.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
We're going to try this one. Let's see. How's that sound?
That's better.
Better.
Better?
Except for we lost the picture.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. If you know Randolph at all, you might be aware that there can be a slight tension between the summer people and the year-rounders. Nothing is ever really said, but I have a feeling that the year-rounders sometimes wonder if the summer people are really entitled to come up here and soak up the wonderful summer sun and warmth of the sun when they have not endured the long and harsh winters. Just not fair. And this year, with the coronavirus running rampant, it seemed a little like the summer folks' arrival was being postponed. This might have been because of the fear of catching the dreaded COVID-19, or maybe it was because the year-round people didn't want their off-season activities interrupted by the meddlesome summer folk. There are three rumors about what the year-round folk get up to when all the summer people have finally left for the season. I have heard only three, and I know there are only rumors. That makes one wonder. Here is the first rumor. Up near the far side of the paddle court, behind the old playhouse, there is a rusted storm door pretty much set right into the ground. I have seen the door, but it has a serious lock on it, and there is no way I can open it. But what I've heard is that when the first snow falls and all the summer folk have finally vamoosed, that door is unlocked and pretty much the whole town goes down there. Apparently there is a huge high-ceilinged area about the size of a football field, the floor of which is covered with mattresses. The place is lit with soft ambient light, and romantic music is played through an excellent sound system. Yeah. As you enter the place, you are required to remove all your clothing, and your cell phone is put in a lockbox, designed by Al Gore. And once this is done, you are encouraged to grab one of those huge sponges that are floating in massive vats of Mazola oil, seasoned with maple syrup, and slather your entire body with the oil and syrup. Then you join your fellow year-rounders on the mattresses for a winter-long orgy. Of course, you don't spend the entire week. Chores must be done, but the place is open 24/7. Of course, this is only a rumor, but I once overheard at the tea, no less, one year-rounder murmuring to another, "Ah, Mazola, can't come soon enough." The second rumor I've heard is that up near the community trail at the top of Randolph Hill Road, there is a clearing that has been camouflaged with some old pine branches. If you scrape away some of the branches, you can see a tiny railroad track covered with pine needles. The rumor is that there is a small locomotive along with 3 train cars that are stored during the summer in the Kenyon barn. After all the summer folk have left, the small engine is towed up to the community trail and the cars are attached. This coal-fired train can carry about 30 people, and apparently it chugs its way into the forest about a mile past the pond of safety. At the end of the tracks, there's a huge building painted a matte black color that is so beautifully hidden, it's really impossible to see unless the little train takes you right to the front door. Inside is a huge casino with crap tables, roulette wheels, slot machines, and the like. The place is lit with tons of neon and flashing lights. There are male and female pole dancers everywhere. It's a gambler's delight. Scantily clad host and hostesses tempt the guests with lovely tea sandwiches and a huge assortment of beer and liquor and the like, all for the asking. I only found out about the place because once I was in the waiting room of a doctor's office in Berlin, and I saw a copy of the Northern New Hampshire Quarterly, and there was a feature article in it entitled, Randolph Better Than Vegas, The Untold Story. When I came out after seeing the doctor, I looked for the magazine, but it was gone. I called the New Hampshire Quarterly in North Conway, but they denied everything. But I know what I read. And let me ask you something. After the Lincoln Continental caught fire at the Randolph Tea a few years back, how many of you have been in Kenyon's barn? The third rumor involves Duran Lake. Have you ever walked on the bottom of Duran Lake? Sort of pretty muddy and squishy, right? But what I've heard is that beneath that 3 to 4 inch silt, there is a huge, thick slabs of plexiglass. What I've been told is that on the far side of the lake near the supposed beaver dam, there's a ground floor door similar to the one near the paddle courts, and underneath Duran Lake, and as big as the lake itself, is a huge space. When all the summer folk have left, a huge squeegee scrapes off all the silt on the bottom of the lake, and light filters through the plexiglass, creating the most ethereal effect. The place is filled with huge quarter-sawn oak benches, and on the east side, there's a massive stage with a raised lectern that is kind of like a pulpit. On the south side, there's a massive organ that I've heard is larger than the organ at Radio City Music Hall. In this space, there's a constant array of preachers, poets, essayists, and spiritual gurus. Religious oratorios, sermons, poetry readings, and morality plays are performed pretty much all day and night. With the light filtering through from Duran Lake, with the organ music playing, and wonderful uplifting performances, many have said their lives have been forever changed for the better. This might well explain why the year-rounders have that spiritual glaze when you first see them in the late spring. Being a summer person, I probably will never know which of these rumors is true. But someday in the dead of winter, I'm going to sneak into town and I'm going to get to the bottom of this. Thank you. You had to be there.
You don't forget, you guys, to send your stories to Dee Dee, right, Dee Dee?
Right.
He wants your stories. Oh my God, Bill, we got to make sure.
It's great.
Bill, we're going to be watching for you.
It's our first winter coming up. I can't wait.
Samuel Coleridge write a poem, went something like in some place did Bill Minifie decree a stately pleasure gown. I believe that's Coleridge.
Oh, good guy.
That like Xanadu or something.
Xanadu, no, Randolph. In Randolph did Bill Minifie decree.
Thank you, Bill. So I'm going to go next. I don't have anything nearly as good as Bill's, but just some thoughts I thought I'd share. And then after that, that's the end of our so-called signups. And anyone is welcome and invited to offer any reflections that you might like to share. So the first actually has to do with the potato gun. So our nephews, Spencer and Riley Used my brother Dyke's sons, were both on trail crew, and they made their own potato guns. And we just thought they were, geniuses and, knew how to make a potato gun. And we've been blasting them off for years and years and years. And I just thought I just thought they came up with that idea, but now I understand that Doug probably taught them how to make a potato gun. So I'm gonna have to, I think we'll want to thank him for teaching them how to make potato guns. We set one off as recently as last September after one of the younger generation Mays got married down at the pool. You might remember that took place in September. We set off the potato gun at midnight that night. So yeah, I didn't realize Doug was like the king behind the potato guns. I won't mention this to my nephews though, because I think they thought it up. Another thing I want to share is just one thing that we do up here all the time, and this is kind of like what Betsy was talking about, is play a card game that it's the G-rated name is Up and Down the River. Does anybody know that? And it also has an X-rated name, which I'm not going to say, but we learned it up at Crag Camp. And it made me think that we used to go to Crag Camp all the time because both my brothers, Dyke and Alan, were caretakers up there, and then lots of our friends. going to Crag Camp was like, it's like just like walking down to the lake. It's just like a simple thing that you would do. And when Lydia Houston and I, my brother Dyke's wife, Lydia Ogilvy Houston, were lifeguards down at the pool, we would work from 10 to 6. And then at 6, we'd come up, change our clothes, and then hike up to Crag because Dyke was up there. And I think Ben Campbell was the caretaker there at the time. And we would just go up and have dinner and spend the night and come back down and go to work in the morning. We didn't think anything of it. Now I think these days I have to like train for a year to even imagine getting up to Crag Camp. But Crag was like a second home to us. And so this card game came down to us, and we still play it all the time here. We just played it last night. We'll play it again tonight. It's like the only place we play it is here. It's kind of a betting game. You bet how many tricks you're going to take. And then the last thing I wanted to share has to do with the pool. We live in Winchester, Mass, outside of Boston, and it's been really, really hot down there. And we've been sharing our house here in Randolph because of the virus, taking turns using it. And so we weren't able to come up earlier. And I was just, dreaming of being in the pool. I just wanted to be in the pool so badly. And, so finally we get up here and it is gorgeous. If you haven't been in, it's just, it's still a little bit chilly, but once you get used to it, it is absolutely beautiful. And I have to say that I've thought this about the pool my whole life. We first started coming here when I was like 5. I've always loved that pool. To me, it's the best swimming on the planet. And I always feel refreshed and renewed after being in it. And in fact, we're going to go down and get in it right after the Story Slam. So those are just some of the things I wanted to share. And let's ask the question if anybody else would like to offer anything. And so if you would like to say something, oh, look at that. Anne has raised her hand. Anne, you must be a real Zoomer. Because there's 2 ways for you to raise your hand. You can go into the participants area and raise your hand, which is what Ann just did. You're welcome to do that. Or you can just literally raise your hand. So let's start with Ann.
Hi. I just want to say I'm obsessed with rocks too, and recently I've been painting rocks. I don't know if you can see this, but I've had a rock painting obsession. I've been going around Tarrytown, New York, collecting rocks. I had a story that I had all planned for last summer, and then I wasn't able to come up, so I thought I would try to reconstruct it. It had to do with my experience of spirituality in Randolph. I had my first mystical experience. I think it was on Dome Rock. My mom went up there with my mom and my brother, and she said, when I'm on these mountains, I feel closer to God. And that always stuck with me because it kind of resonated. And I've always felt like Randolph was a very spiritual place. I noticed there are a lot of ministers who have summered here or summered there. I'm still in New York. And that there's always been a lot of Randolphians at the Randolph Church who were ministers. But my mom told me the story of, well, briefly, that someone she knew, Doug Horton, had set up this center on the top of Pine Mountain as a spiritual center. And it's now called the Horton Center, but I think it wasn't originally. And she told me it was a retreat center, but I found out when my children were younger that they actually have a lot of children's summer camps up there, 1-week sessions. And so it turned out to be a useful sort of childcare thing to kind of schedule my kids to be up there for a week and leave me in Randolph. But when I was up there, I later went up there for a family weekend with them. And I kept hearing the name Doug Horton with great reverence. And of course, I told in an earlier story a couple of years ago how the received wisdom in my family was that Alan Horton, Doug Horton's son, had proposed to my mother, though she could never decide whether to accept. And so I felt very connected going up there, because this was, a close friend of my mother's that had founded the place. And it's really a lovely place, and they have rock climbing, and they have caving, and for me, being a parent with kids with mild autism spectrum disorders, I've found these religious camps have tended to be more welcoming than secular camps for kids with disabilities. So I really want to put in a word for the Horton Center. And they had some wonderful programs for teens as well, to go hut to hut. And so for me, Randolph has always been a very spiritual place. So I'll pass.
All right, I see Guy Stever has raised his hand.
I'm going to share a very quick story because unfortunately I need to disappear as soon as this story is done, because I have a family Zoom scheduled that got scheduled before the story slam. But this explains why I feel I need to go to Gorham every day of my life. Every morning I go to Gorham to check. Now, for those of you, you're all familiar with this. You know in Gorham where Welch's restaurant is, by Gorham Hardware Store. And right across the street on is Exchange Street. And the first building on the left is sort of white. It was an apartment building at one point. The tattoo parlor was most recently there before it closed. But that's the building I go check every morning, because I actually came to Randolph before I even existed. And what happened was in June of 1947, a very pregnant Bunny Stever walked into, or I should say waddled at that point, into Dr. Appleton's office. So she had a prenatal checkup done on this thing in her belly. And that thing, of course, was made. Now, Dr. Appleton's office was right there.
Right.
Where the tattoo parlor.
Yes.
That used to be Doc Appleton's office. Okay. So anyway, later that summer, down in Boston, I was born, but I'd been in Randolph at my grandfather's house before I even was born. And I didn't think anything of that for many, many years until 1970, when I was working that summer at a boys' camp down in Lake Winnipesaukee, Camp Cabian. And being a typical teenager, or late teen, early 20s, I dumped things on my parents, and I was starting teaching at Berlin High School, and I was going to be very late getting back. I asked my mother if she could look around and find apartments for me, find some places that I could stay. And I got back up from Camp Cabian, and she said, I've only found one. And it's very nice. And you want to look at this apartment.
That's right.
And so I went to look at it, and lo and behold, the apartment was the same place I had been in June of 1947. It used to be Dr. Appleton's office. So in September of 1970, I moved back in to the place I'd been many, many years before. And I lived there a year and then very happily moved out, lived in the Mays house in Randolph for a number of years before I got married. But anyway, as I've grown older, I begin to become more and more nervous about the future, and it has nothing to do with the coronavirus. But I drive to Gorham every morning, and I drive up Exchange Street to look, because the minute that building becomes a funeral home, I'm out of here. Best of love to all of you. It's wonderful. It is so. I'm going to go join my family, and I'll look forward to seeing you all in real very shortly. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Right.
Oh, that was good.
Sarah? Do I see her hand, Barbara?
Sure. I think as most people know, Bill and I are not usually here at this time. We're usually up in Cape Breton because this is festival week up there and the music is to die for. So we're very, this is a positive thing of the COVID, that we're having a lovely summer in Randolph, which, you know, it's not a bad thing to be stuck in Randolph by any stretch of the imagination. But I thought I'd kind of tell a little story of how I got here. I met John Free in 1983, and one thing led to another, and we were engaged, and as most of you know, he got ill and passed away in 1986, about a month before the wedding. But in that time, I met Bill, because Bill was very good friends with John, and again, as one thing led to another, Bill and I were married. Well, it'll be 30 years the end of September this year. The only catch was that I came with an 11-year-old daughter who loved Bill and loved Randolph and was very happy about the wedding as long as she didn't have to move. And so for that first year, I lived down there and we visited back and forth and all that kind of stuff. And then I announced that we were actually going to move up here. And it was one of those things that didn't go well for a little while, shall we say. But as one thing led to another, and she got into the hiking and all the freedom of all that brought, she wrote an amazing story for her high school graduation about how she found a home in Randolph. And as she was beginning to leave Randolph of her own volition at this point in time, she would never not come back because Randolph was such a special place. Her admission essay to get into college was about Jackie Bowers and the charades. And she had to write about the 10 best towns in America. And she wrote about going off to find the 10 best towns in America, but she only got as far as Appalachia, because once she got that far, she realized she lived in the best town in America. Oh. So even though we're not native, even though we haven't been here for generations, although Bill has, it's a very, very special time. And I remember the first time Alex got to go to Crag Camp. She was 8 years old, and we finally got up there. Bill took about a 400-pound pack, and Alex and I took maybe, 20-pound packs. I bribed her the whole way up with M&Ms and troll houses and the whole bit. And she just wasn't gonna go. And we finally crested the hill and saw Crag and got up there, and she was so excited that she started running around and jumping, and poor Bill was just passed out on the porch at that point in time. And Jonathan Gorley and his exchange friend Sebastian were hiking with us, but of course they were up there earlier. And they got so tired of this 8-year-old bouncing around. I mean, they were very mature children of maybe 13 or 14 at that point in time, that they picked her up and they pinned her to the the clothesline up in Crag. And we have pictures of Alex kind of flopping around on the line up at Crag when she was 8. The next day, we took her up to the summit. And it was a little windy, but we were going up the cone and everything was fine. And just as we crested the summit cone, there was a huge gust of wind. And Bill grabbed one arm and I grabbed the other arm. And Alex was flapping like a flag up at the summit, and she thought we'd planned it that way. She thought, oh, this is fun, and we must do this all the time. The other thing is that she grew up thinking it was normal to have authors and Nobel Prize winners and doctors and ministers and the whole bit. She thought every kid grew up like that going around the town. She thought every town had strange charades once a year in the Mossy Glen, and it has served her well. She did very well in college. She's gone on. We have 2 wonderful grandkids that once I mentioned something about the cottage or our house, and my grandson Henry said, I don't care what you do with it, just don't ever sell it, because they've spent a lot of time here too. So even though I'm not multi-generation yet, we're trying to form multi-generations to be in the cottage that Bill's parents bought in 1939 to just so that Bill and Jackie would have a stable house, because Ben was a minister and he anticipated moving a lot, but so that they would always have a place to come. And now we're here. So that's just sort of my story.
Wonderful. Thank you. Back there in your house? Is Bill in there?
He is.
I am. I'm here.
Hi, Bill.
The dog. Can you see yourself, William?
There he is.
There he is.
The dog has a collar on.
Yeah, the cone of shade.
The dog has a collar on. She has the cone of shade. Yes. She's been chewing her leg, and so she has a hot spot. So, yeah. Anyways.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
Barbara.
All right. Would anyone else like to share anything? I see Renee.
Yeah, this will be brief, but we miss Randolph. This is so uplifting to see you, to hear you, to laugh with you, to see the scenes behind you. But I do have a confession to make. We've had a really hot, steamy Washington, D.C., and this is why this was an impetus to spend full summers, which we've been doing for so long. This is not the summer for us to come up. But what I'm guilty about is that, have you noticed the water level at Ravine Pool going down a little? Maybe not. Good. That's good news if you haven't, because I have secretly installed a pipeline from my shower head. And it's the only thing that's getting me through. So it's good news. You haven't noticed.
Don't tell the damn guy.
Sometimes, but it's not down this year, partly because Lauren Bradley's been really focused on making sure that it doesn't do that anymore. But that
is good.
You guys.
Damn.
Having you up here.
Nothing.
Behind her. She's sitting in the ditch.
Anybody else want to share something? I see Wendy.
No, it's Steve.
I see Steve.
Not me, it's him.
Randolph is what it is. Can it be any better than what it is? It is what it is, Randolph. And what makes that are people like you and I, or I guess more than you than I. But Randolph is what it is. It's great to hear all of this Zooming thing. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. All right. Anybody else? I'm looking for hands.
Just don't forget. Can you hear me?
Yes, Dee Dee.
Okay, don't forget to send your stories so that they can live on forever. Send them to the Mountain View, and I'll do my best to get them in.
And even if you just told one on the fly, you can just send a few notes to Dee Dee and she'll put it in.
That would be wonderful. And it helps keep the paper going, and I get incredible positive responses from the readership from all your stories.
What is her address?
My email is in a Mountain View if you have one on hand, but I'll read it to you now. DeeDeAube@gmail.com. So that's simply DeeDeAube@gmail.com.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I just want to check and make sure, you know how sometimes you sit there and you think, well, should I say something or should I not say something I don't really want? Or maybe I do, maybe I don't. Is there anyone who's on the fence like that and will feel remiss later if they didn't? You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Need you to do it, Brad.
All right.
Sign me up for next year, Sarah.
I heard that, Jen. I heard that. I write that down.
I'm on.
Barb will go next year.
Barb, okay. And Gail, what are you saying?
I'm saying next year Caesar's going to tell a story about his honeymoon in Randolph, New Hampshire.
Yes, August. No, July 1979. It was rocking up in Randolph.
Bill, did you hear that? We already have 3 for next year.
So should we, I mean, in the past, I told some stories, but I don't think transcribed them. Should I go back and transcribe them and send them to the Mountain View?
Definitely. Send those to Dee Dee. She tries to run a few every time.
Because I think they're on
I have a
YouTube
treat for you.
still.
The Convention of the Hill is.
What were they talking about the damn guy?
John, you're just in time. Go ahead.
I don't think it was the damn guy. I think it was the damn guy.
Oh, all right. Well, I heard something about the damn guy. Can you see me?
Get back here and tell your story. Come on. He's walking away.
He's gone.
All right, well, I'm putting him down for next year.
He's got a septic to put in or something.
All right, everybody.
Bye.
Nice
Bye.
job, Sarah. Bye.
Thanks for doing it.
Stay well.
Wait.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye.
Oh.